Hey y'all, this is Ryan Sheffield, co-creator of Trash Lords and co-founder of Craft Fair Games. If you're watching this video, it means you made a dumb life mistake and decided to play our game, Trash Lords. Since you've already hit rock bottom, I might as well teach you how to play it. Maybe it'll give you something to do in jail. First, all players need to choose a CRUSTY. The CRUSTY cards are double-sided, so if one player wants to play as Clit Lord, then none of the other players can play as Turd. I know that sucks, but we wanted to keep this shitty game as cheap as possible for you, so we had to keep the card count to a minimum. Luckily for all you turd lovers out there, we also uploaded PDF files of every card in the game to our website, so you can download them for free and print your own turds. But anyway, once all players have chosen a CRUSTY card, they put it on the table in front of them and grab an HP track. Each HP track has a reference sheet printed on the back, and we also included a separate reference card for your reference. So the HP track has 6 tiers: 5 HP, 4 HP, 3, 2, 1, and dead broke. All players start the game at 3 HP, so slide your track beneath your CRUSTY like so. Throughout the game, you'll lose and gain HP, and you'll slide the track up and down accordingly. If you get down to the dead broke tier, you're out of the game.
Come on, Duke, let's go do those crimes.
Yeah, let's go get sushi and not pay.
Next, it's time to set up the game board. There are 5 standard venues in the game: the squat, 3 dumpsters, and the altar. There are also 2 optional venues, the street corner and vacant lot. I'll get into those later, but for now we're just going to go with the standard venues. The standard layout of the Trash Lords board is a circle arranged like this. But this is punk rock, so you can arrange the venues any way you want, as long as they're all adjacent in some way. For the purposes of this tutorial video, we're gonna just use the standard layout, but on your own time, hey, get weird with it. Once you've got the venues arranged, each player needs to find their CRUSTY's matching token and place it on top of the squat card. The tokens represent the physical location of your CRUSTY, and you'll be moving them from venue to venue throughout the game. Next comes the Trash Lord, peace be upon him. The Trash Lord begins the game asleep, so put the token face down in the center of the board. Or if you're using a less circular layout, put it as close to the center of the table as you can. Trash Lords comes with 4 decks of mini cards, and each one corresponds to a specific venue. Separate them out, shuffle each deck individually, then place them next to their matching venue like this. Be sure to leave room for a discard pile next to each venue. The game comes with 6 mini dice. You can put them wherever you want, but make sure they're within reach of all the players. I recommend keeping them in piles of 3. The object of the game is to be the first CRUSTY to summon the Trash Lord. In order to do that, you need to have one of each thing in your stash. Once you've got that, you need to play a summon card at the altar and win the game by declaring yourself the Trash Lord's one true glorious trash child. You can also win the game by beating all the other CRUSTYs to death, or otherwise just being the last person alive. Alright, gameplay. Decide who's going to take the first turn. Play will continue clockwise for the rest of the game. On your turn, you can take up to 4 actions. The actions can be taken in any order, and the same action can be taken more than once. The actions you can choose from are Skitch, Dig, Stash, Trash, Sacrifice, and Summon. Skitch means moving your CRUSTY from one venue to another adjacent venue. Each move counts as its own action, so if you want to move from the squat to the altar, it'll take 2 actions. In the standard layout, it's pretty easy to tell which venues are adjacent to one another. But if you're playing with a different layout, you might want to make sure that adjacent venues are actually touching on the sides and not just the corners. That way it's easier to tell which, fuck it. Next we have Dig. In order to dig, your CRUSTY needs to be at one of the 3 dumpster venues. Digging means drawing a card from that dumpster's deck. Depending on the type of card it is, you'll either add it to your hand or resolve it immediately and discard it face up in the dumpster's discard pile. Since dumpster diving isn't exactly legal and you're not exactly inconspicuous, digging more than once at the same venue is risky. If you want to use an action to dig deeper in the same dumpster on the same turn, you've got to roll for it. And quick word of warning, yes, we do use dice as both the plural and the singular, because fuck the grammar police. Fascist. So here's the breakdown. The first dig, just draw the card. Second dig, you have to roll 1 dice. Third dig, 2 dice. Fourth dig, 3 dice. If you don't roll a 1 on any of the dice, you can draw a card. But if you roll a 1 on any of the dice at all, that means the cops showed up and you've got to immediately discard your entire hand, move your Krusty back to the squat, and end your turn. A couple of quick things. Remember, this only applies if you're digging more than once at the same dumpster on the same turn. So let's say on your turn you use all 4 of your actions to dig at this dumpster. On your next turn, the dice count would reset to 0, so your first dig would be freeze, second would require 1 dice, third 2 dice, so on. I really hope that makes sense. I'm sorry, I was drunk as shit when I wrote this voiceover script, so if you have any questions, please email us or hit us up on social media. Oh, one more thing. If a deck runs out of cards, just shuffle its discard to form a new deck. Another action you can take is stashing, which means taking a thing card from your hand and placing it face down in your stash. We recommend lining your stash cards horizontally like this next to your Krusty to help distinguish them from your hand when you set it on the table. There are 4 kinds of thing cards in the game: snacks, smokes, booze, and dope. And you need 1 of each in your stash before you can summon the Trash Lord and win the game. So here are the rules for stashing. To stash things, your Krusty has to be at the squat. It only costs 1 action to stash up to 4 things from your hand if it's all at the same time. So if you want to stash 3 things at once, it's going to be 1 action, not 3. You can only stash thing cards, not blessings or keepers or any other kind of card in the game. Just these 4 cards that you see on the screen. And you can only stash 1 of each kind of thing. So if you've already got a dope card in your stash, you wouldn't be able to stash another one. I mean, nobody likes a Bogart, dude. Once you've stashed a thing, it stays in your stash unless a card forces you to give it up. You can't voluntarily remove anything from your stash. It belongs to the Lord now. Thing cards can also be trashed. Each of the 4 things has a unique effect printed on the card. In order to activate that effect, you've got to trash it. Here are the rules for trashing things. You can trash things no matter which venue your Krusty is currently at. To trash a thing, remove it from your hand, discard it in the dumpster discard pile of your choice, and immediately resolve the card's effect. Unlike stashing, each card you trash counts as 1 action, and you have to resolve each 1 at a time. If you trash a snacks card, you can rotate the Trash Lord to point at the player of your choice. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. If you trash a dope card, you can steal 1 card from another player's stash and add it to your hand. You can't look at the card before you take it, and it's important to note that you're stealing from their stash, not their hand. If you trash a smokes card, you can move your HP track up 1 point, unless you already have the maximum of 5. Now, booze cards work a little differently. Trashing a booze card starts a fight with another player, which means your Krusty has to be in the same venue as the player you want to start a fight with. So let's say you're playing as Bucket and you're at the squat. Since you're in a fighting mood and that fucking poser turd also happens to be in the squat, you decide to start some shit. Use an action to trash a booze card from your hand and discard it in any of the dumpster discard piles you want to. Both you and whichever one of your idiot friends is playing as turd will take 3 dice and roll them at the same time. 5s and 6s count as hits. Everything else is a miss. You'll ignore all the misses and then both of you will total up your hits. The difference between those totals is the amount of damage done to the loser. So let's say you rolled 2 hits and Turd only rolled 1. Turd's hit will cancel out 1 of your hits, but there's still 1 hit left over, so that's 1 damage to Turd. He loses 1 HP. So he adjusts his HP track down accordingly, and that ends the first round of the fight. Before the next round starts, both players have the option to back out. If you back out of a fight, you have to give your entire hand to your opponent, if you have one, and move your Krusty to the adjacent venue of your choice. If you're the one who started the fight, your turn is over. If neither player decides to back out, you roll for the next round of fighting and repeat the process until one of you either backs out or dies. If your Krusty runs out of HP during a fight, they're dead and you're out of the game. Give your entire hand to the player who killed you and discard everything in your stash. Oh, and if you happen to roll 3 6s on a single roll during a fight, then you get to draw a free blessing card and add it to your hand. Another action you can take is sacrificing a card at the altar to gain a blessing. To do this, you have to be at the altar, and you have to discard a card from your hand. It can be a thing or a keeper, but it can't be a blessing, and you don't get to use the effect of whatever card you sacrifice. Put the sacrifice card in the dumpster discard pile of your choice, draw a card from the blessing deck, and add it to your hand. Finally, there's summoning. To summon the Trash Lord, you must have all 4 things in your stash, have a summon card in your hand, and be at the altar. Use an action to play the summon card, declare yourself the Trash Lord's one true glorious trash child, and you win this ridiculous fucking game. There's also a free action you can take on your turn, and that's panhandling. You can't do it at the squat or at the altar because everyone at those venues is broke as shit. Panhandling does not count as one of your 4 actions. You can panhandle up to 3 times on your turn, and you can do it at any point during your turn. But much like digging for too long in the same dumpster, panhandling is risky. The first time you panhandle on your turn, roll 1 dice. The second time, 2 dice. Third time, 3 dice. If you don't roll any 1s, you gain 1 HP, up to the maximum of 5. But if you do roll a 1 on any of the dice, you get busted by the cops. You have to discard your hand, move back to the squat, and end your turn. So, quick recap. You get 4 actions per turn. They can be taken in any order and more than once. Skitch, move to an adjacent venue. Dig, draw a card from the dumpster that you're currently at. Dig deeper at the same dumpster by rolling 1 additional dice for each additional dig. Stash, when you're at the squat, take up to 4 thing cards from your hand and put them in your stash. Trash, discard a thing card from your hand to use its effect. Sacrifice, when you're at the altar, discard a card from your hand, draw a blessing, and add it to your hand. Summon, when you're at the altar and you have all 4 things in your stash, discard a summon card from your hand and win the game. Panhandling, roll to try and gain 1 HP. It doesn't count as an action, and you can do it up to 3 times per turn. Okay, so that's the end of part 1 of our 2-part series for learning how to whatever the fuck with the possum. Stay tuned for part 2. We'll get that out to you just as soon as we possibly can. I really need to go get a drink. Anyway, love you, bye.